A body that once forgot which way was up is about to decide everything in 10 seconds. Paris, August 1st, 2024. The all-around floor sits silent before the music. Chalk hangs in the light like snow. Simone Biles inhales, closes her eyes, and whispers to herself, "Breathe, trust, go." The arena holds its breath. Is a fracture from 2021 now a scar or a map? The music hits. She's all speed and control, defiance with a smile. Each twist weighs risk against the voice that saved her career. Did Tokyo end the myth or save the human being inside it? The answer is about to land on the mat. Rewind to fluorescent lights and microphones. Tokyo, July 27th, 2021. She looks straight ahead and says, "I have to focus on my mental health." In a sport that prizes silence, she draws a line and refuses to step over it. She doesn't fall, she chooses. And that choice, unthinkable to many, starts a different kind of ascent. Origins shape risk. A child learns safety before she learns to soar. Then a family builds a place where ambition can breathe. The ascent, world titles and Rio gold, looks effortless from the stands. Get closer and you see the engine. Discipline, not destiny. Each milestone tightens a knot between belonging and flight. Foster homes, careful routines, a sister's hand in hers. Before medals came the question, where do I fit? The answer arrived as a decision made by family. Simone Ariane Biles Owens was born March 14, 1997 in Columbus, Ohio. Early memories flicker, caseworkers' voices, kitchens that smell like someone else's dinner, a sister's fingers laced in hers when everything else felt slippery. Foster care teaches vigilance. It turns consistency into oxygen. In 2003, her maternal grandfather, Ronald, and his wife, Nellie, adopt Simone and her younger sister. They bring the girls to Spring, Texas, the house filled with rules that make life predictable. Homework first, practice next. Bedtime is a promise you keep. Belonging isn't sentimental. It's scheduled, safe, and built. A school field trip tilts the axis. Kids pour into a gym dusted with chalk and laughter. Simone is small, curious, restless. She bounces on the floor. The floor answers back. A coach sees how fear arrives late for her. Shoulders square under effort, eyes narrow on task. A note goes home recommending classes. Money is tight, time is tighter. The family says yes anyway. Repetition becomes refuge. She learns to trust her hands, then her wrists, then her ankles. 1,000 micro-confidences assemble into flight. Vault is angles and run-up math. Beam is a heartbeat measured in centimeters. Bars are rhythm disguised as steel. Floor is storytelling with tumbling for punctuation. She stands 4 feet 8 inches, compact power made human, turning rotation into advantage. And beneath the drills, something invisible grows, the ability to trust herself when the air gets uncertain. That's the first hook of this journey. A girl who finally feels safe chooses to leave the ground. When the world doesn't build you a home, you rent a warehouse and do it yourself. A teenager's talent finds a roof. A future gets a street address. Spring, Texas. Before World Champion Center glows as an elite facility, it's a cavernous rental the locals nickname The Shed. Steel echoes, air conditioning hums. Nellie and Ron Biles wrangle equipment deliveries and sign-in sheets. They believe, sometimes on fumes, that a building can become a promise. Mats replace bare concrete, beams line up like a quiet forest. A vault runway has to start in the parking lot because the space isn't long enough yet. You work with what you've got, and then you make it better. Early on, Coach Amy Borman helps translate Simone's raw power into craft. Hours of basics, patience with form, and insistence on control before difficulty. By 2013, Simone steps into senior competition. Antwerp becomes a stage and a mirror. world all-around champion, and the first African-American woman to do it. On the podium, what reads as surprise is something else. I belong here. The next 2 seasons compress into a new normal, 2014, 2015, team and individual dominance. Most decorated at Worlds becomes a phrase that still doesn't capture the work behind it. Confidence acquires playful armor. Later, she'll step onto the mat in a leotard stitched with a rhinestone goat. Critics bristle. She shrugs. The point is to tell kids it's okay to acknowledge you're good, even great. It isn't bragging, it's permission. The next question isn't whether she can win, it's what it will cost to keep winning and what she's willing to spend to stay whole. Heat, color, noise that doesn't stop. Rio becomes the moment when excellence looks like joy, and the world mistakes effortlessness for ease. At the 2016 Olympics, she turns physics into applause. Team gold with the final 5, all-around gold, vault gold, floor gold, and beam bronze. Anyone else would call it a crown. For her, it's a reminder that gravity never signs a long-term peace treaty. Her smile isn't stagecraft, it's relief. It tells every kid watching that power can look like joy. Fame arrives with a magnifying glass. A hack exposes her therapeutic use exemption for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder medication. Strangers try to attach shame to a medical condition and a documented approval. She answers plainly. Having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and treating it is nothing to be ashamed of. Vulnerability becomes a tool, not a liability. Young athletes learn that success can include honesty. Success also enlarges risk. Routines get harder. The calendar tightens. Expectations rise. She answers in the only language the sport respects: higher difficulty, cleaner landings, and an unwillingness to let anyone else define what she's allowed to attempt. What she cannot control waits off the mat. Soon, it steps into the light. Name the harm, defy the system, and face a day in Tokyo when courage looks like stopping. The narrative could have ended here. Instead, it found a harder, better way through. A survivor speaks. An innovator refuses to fit inside a score sheet. Therapy becomes equipment. Truth becomes a vault. In 2018, Simone says publicly what too many had to say in private. She was abused by Larry Nassar. The statement doesn't erase the weight, it redistributes it toward institutions that failed to protect children. Then comes the unglamorous work of repair, therapy that separates coping from healing, training that lets fear be acknowledged without handing it the keys. She will later sit under Senate lights and describe not just a predator, but the system that enabled him. That same year, she returns to competition and proves the body can tell a different story than the headlines. At Worlds, she competes after a hospital visit for a kidney stone and still wins a haul of medals, including the all-around. Pain management and precision share space in a single athlete. The sport evolves around her. In October 2019, Antwerp again. She lands a triple-double on floor and a double-double dismount off the beam. Both enter the code under her name. Her beam dismount is controversially undervalued by the International Gymnastics Federation, citing safety. The debate intensifies. How do you score invention without nudging others toward danger? Progress always argues with the rules that came before it. The pandemic year bends time. 2020 turns living rooms into training labs and gyms into pods with temperature checks at the door. She keeps a careful bubble at World Champions Center, adding pieces she once treated as impossible, including a Yurchenko double pike she'll unveil domestically in 2021. The extra year gives skills space to grow and pressure room to multiply. By April 2021, she makes a brand move with intent, leaving Nike for Athleta. The statement is bigger than money. Align what you wear with what you stand for. That fall, the Gold Over America Tour reframes gymnastics as celebration. Choreographed strength, athlete voices amplified, and kids invited to see the joy without the judges. Progress doesn't remove pressure. It changes what you do with it.
The twisties arrive without warning. A leader draws a boundary in front of millions and honors it under brighter lights. Tokyo is a games delayed and distorted by a pandemic. The women's team final opens with cameras tracking every exhale. On vault, mid-air, her brain misfires. Up feels sideways. The twist becomes a stranger. She lands on her feet through instinct, not certainty. Gymnasts call it the twisties. The word sounds cute until you're falling. She stops, she tells her coaches, she tells her teammates. Then she tells the world she needs to focus on her mental health. It refuses simple labels. Not quitting, not strategy. A boundary set in public and kept in practice. She withdraws from most events, then returns on beam with a non-twisting routine, a double pike dismount, and wins bronze. The medal doesn't erase the fracture. It documents the repair. The split screen is unforgettable. Critics hungry for a fall. A captain in a warm-up jacket, clapping for others, grounding a younger squad. The definition of toughness shifts, away from pain as proof, toward wisdom as strength. That shift won't be unanimous. It will be lasting. When the noise fades, the rebuild begins, not louder.
Smarter, trust relearned, one turn at a time. A Senate room, a steady voice, a new definition of leadership. Accountability becomes part of the job. September 15th, 2021, Washington, D.C. Under lights designed to flatten spin, she testifies about abuse and institutional failure. We have been failed. I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. The measured tone makes the indictment heavier. Courage looks less like a stuck landing and more like plain speech that can't be softened by PR. Recognition follows in a different arena. In 2022, the White House places the Presidential Medal of Freedom around her neck, the youngest recipient that year, honored not just for medals, but for what her voice made possible. Back in spring, the rebuild is measured in weekly therapy, drilled progressions, and sessions that end on time even when adrenaline votes to keep going. With coaches Cecile and Laurent Landy at World Champion Center, she transitioned to them after Rio. The plan respects cognition as much as conditioning. There's no magic. She's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen, Cecile says. Work here includes recovery, includes saying no, includes stopping after a near miss to protect tomorrow's practice. Her leadership evolves, decisive in private, protective in public, instructional on the floor. She reminds younger athletes their worth isn't transactional and proves it when scores wobble. She models boundaries, days off, adjusted routines, and the audacity to turn excellence into something sustainable. The path back is slow by design. That slowness is the point. It lays the runway for a different kind of takeoff. The comeback is quiet until it isn't. Antwerp is a hinge. Paris is a door thrown wide. What looks like return is really reinvention of her and of what the sport asks of a champion. Antwerp again. A wedding ring, a steadier routine, and a vault that turns fear into form. In 2023, Simone marries Jonathan Owens, an NFL safety who understands the choreography of two elite careers. A civil ceremony in April, a celebration in May in Cabo San Lucas. Marriage doesn't slow the mission. It widens the circle of steadiness. Family, coaches, teammates, and a therapist who helps turn fear into information instead of an alarm. August brings the U.S. Classic, her first meet back on the national stage since Tokyo. Nerves are visible, then useful. She wins. Weeks later at Nationals, she adds another all-around title, expanding a record that once sounded untouchable. October, Antwerp, the city of her first world all-around, witnesses a different kind of debut. She sprints, blocks, tucks, lands the Yurchenko double pike, the Biles too, becoming the first woman to do so at a world championships. The vault sounds simple in words, savage in physics. Impact thunders through the floor. She stands it up and grins. Later, she'll downplay it with a laugh. "I kind of nailed that one." The line hides months of ugly reps and days when her mind said not yet. And she listened. She wins a 6th world all-around in Antwerp. Tears on the podium feel less like victory and more like relief. A private conversation with a younger self who needed proof that there was air on the other side of Tokyo. Netflix's Simone Biles Rising takes the audience behind the curtain. Incremental drills, taped ankles, visualization, and the grace to choose patience over volume. Up close, greatness is not loud. It's precise. It's repetitive. It's patient. Paris 2024, Team Gold, a tightrope all around, a vault written in capital letters. The sports timeline gets redrawn mid-routine. Spring 2024 adds fuel. She wins a record 9th U.S. all-around title, a landmark for any gymnast, any era. Then summer in Paris. First, the team final. The United States wins gold behind a captain who blends ferocity with care. The roster is multi-generational. Simone Biles, Suni Lee, Jordan Chiles, Jade Carey, and 16-year-old Hesley Rivera. 5 athletes stitched into one rhythm. She steadies the group with a hand on a shoulder, a louder clap after a stuck landing, a joke that releases tension just before the salute. The medal is her 8th Olympic medal, pushing her past a U.S. record and into a category kids will one day read about as if it were fiction. August 1st, the all-around final. On bars, a mistake snaps the rhythm and costs her the lead. She fights the routine back, jaw set, and drops to the mat with an exhale that says, "Move on." On beam, pencil-thin real estate turns to poetry. On floor, the engine revs without blowing the gasket. When the scores lock, history follows. The first woman to win non-consecutive Olympic all-around titles. And at 27, the oldest women's all-around Olympic champion since 1952. Apparatus finals. Vault gold lands with a thud you can feel in your chest. Floor brings silver by the narrowest of margins. She leaves Paris with 4 medals: team gold, all-around gold, vault gold, floor silver, and 11 Olympic medals overall across 3 games. Counting can't capture everything, but it matters. It tells the next generation what used to be unthinkable now has a name they can pronounce. Beyond the podium glow, life stays specific. Through her mother, she holds Belizean citizenship and often calls Belize her second home, a reminder that her world stretches wider than red, white, and blue. She still trains out of the gym her family built, a place designed to make ambition ordinary and excellence shared. What matters most isn't what Paris proved to us, it's what it proved to her. She can set the terms and still fly. 5 eponymous skills, a culture shift, leadership defined as care with standards. The cost of Tokyo was immediate, the return compounded over time. There are 5 elements named Biles in the code: 2 on vault, 2 on floor, 1 on beam, including the Biles 2 on vault, the hardest women's vault in the book today. These aren't stunts, they're arguments written in rotation. Preparation can turn the impossible into policy. Risk and reward keep negotiating their boundaries. She stands at that junction because her difficulty keeps forcing the sport to redraw its maps, sometimes meeting resistance, as when her 2019 beam dismount carried a lower value in the name of safety. It isn't defiance for defiance's sake. It's stewardship for what the next generation can learn without being asked to gamble their bodies. Leadership, now, looks practical, not performative. It's a captain redirecting a spotlight to a teammate after a clean set. It's protecting recovery days as fiercely as training blocks. It's insisting that joy isn't a luxury item in elite sport, it's fuel. Therapy moved from emergency brake to standard equipment, scheduled, integrated, visible. The message lands. The mind is not separate from the body. It's the 5th apparatus. The Tokyo choice had a price. Criticism from people who confuse endurance with excellence. Months of rebuilding trust, inch by inch. But look at what it bought. A career extended, a voice sharpened, a blueprint for athletes who refuse to trade health for hardware. The all-around in Paris reads differently with that lens. Bars isn't a meme, it's a hinge. Beam is precision speaking fear's language. Floor is gratitude made kinetic. She is 28 now. The numbers will keep trying to define her. They won't. Legacy isn't a spreadsheet. It's permission. It's the child in a small town who hears an icon say, "I need to stop," and realizes boundaries don't fence talent in, they keep it standing. A final image smaller than a podium. Spring, Texas. Late afternoon, World Champion Center after the last class. No music, no cameras. Just the sound of a coach counting, the rip of Velcro grips, and the thud of a practiced landing. Simone runs, lifts, tons. The feet kiss the mat and hold. Somewhere, another kid takes a breath and tries. The future is already in the air.